I shouldn't remember her voice this clearly. But I do. It started on a Monday. I almost skipped class. The rain was heavy, shoes soaked through, and I stood outside the door of her office, dripping water on the hallway floor. I told myself I was only here for the paper she said I needed to revise, nothing more. When I knocked, she didn't even look up. "Come in," she said, voice low but firm. Professor Hale. Mid-40s, sharp lines in her face softened by tiredness. She wore glasses that she kept adjusting, like she didn't want to admit she needed them. There was something about the way she moved, deliberate, precise, as if the whole room bent around her rhythm. "Your essay." She slid it across the desk without meeting my eyes. Red ink bled across the margins. "You've got ideas, but you're rushing. You need to slow down, think." I nodded, but my throat was too tight to answer. Her pen tapped once against the wood, and only then did she glance up. A pause stretched. Longer than it should have. "You're still here," she said. Yeah, I muttered. I didn't want to leave without. I stopped, realizing I had nothing to add. She leaned back in her chair, studying me with an unreadable expression. The office was too quiet. The rain hammered against the windows, and the clock ticked in sharp little clicks that made me aware of my breathing. I shifted, pulling at the sleeve of my damp hoodie. "You don't answer questions directly," she said suddenly. I swallowed. "I guess not." Her mouth curved, not quite a smile, but something close. And in that small flicker, something caught inside me. She looked down again, scribbling a note in the corner of the page, her hand moving quickly, but the air between us had changed. I could feel it. My chest tight, my hands restless on my knees. "I'll redo it," I said. My voice came out too fast. "Good." Another pause. "But don't just redo it. Think about why you're writing it." Her gaze rose again, steady this time. "You understand what I'm asking?" I nodded, though I wasn't sure if we were still talking about the paper. For a second, the silence was unbearable. Then she shifted, gathering the pages, and pushed them toward me. Her fingers brushed mine, just the edge, almost nothing. But I felt it. Sharp, electric. I froze, but she didn't move her hand right away. Finally, she drew back. Her voice softened. "You should go. It's late." I stood, clutching the papers like they mattered more than they did. My pulse raced in my ears. I turned to leave, desperate for air, when her voice stopped me cold. "Close the door," she said. I hesitated, hand still on the knob. "We're not finished yet." The door clicked shut behind me, and suddenly the air felt heavier. I turned, papers clutched too tightly in my hand. She was watching me again, though her eyes flicked away the moment I met them. "You're distracted," she said. Her tone was matter-of-fact, but softer than before. I shifted in place. "Maybe. It's been a long day." Her brow lifted slightly, like she wanted to ask more but thought better of it. She leaned back, removing her glasses, rubbing the bridge of her nose with 2 fingers. The gesture made her seem less like the professor everyone saw, and more like someone just tired. Something in me wanted to fill the silence. "You don't look like you've slept much either." Her hand stilled. She gave me a look that could have been annoyance, but wasn't. "You notice too much," she murmured. I swallowed hard, unsure if I'd crossed a line. My throat tightened. I was supposed to take the notes, thank her, and leave. Instead, I stood rooted, eyes following the way her hair fell loose from its clip, the faint circles under her eyes that no one else would probably dare to point out. She sighed and leaned forward, resting her elbows on the desk. "I shouldn't be talking about this with you." "Talking about what?" I asked, though I knew. Her eyes lingered on the stack of papers between us before lifting again. Personal things. It's not professional. The word professional landed like a stone. I nodded, but inside I couldn't ignore the way her voice had dipped when she said it. Not quite steady. Not quite certain. Still, I said, quieter now, you don't have to carry everything alone. She blinked, and for a moment, the guarded look slipped. I was married for 12 years, she said suddenly. He moved out last spring. I thought the silence would be easier than the arguments. Turns out, it's not. Her confession hung in the air between us. I didn't know what to do with it, except hold it. I looked down at the papers in my hand, words blurred, and before I could stop myself, I said, then maybe that's why you notice when someone's still here. Her breath caught. Just barely. The room was too warm now, the rain still steady outside. I shifted again, meaning to leave, but she stopped me with a small gesture, her hand reaching across the desk, fingertips brushing against my sleeve. Stay a little longer, she said, almost whispering. My chest tightened, heat crawling up my neck. I wanted to answer, to say what was rising in me, too fast, too dangerous, but the words tangled in my mouth. Instead, I stood there, her touch resting lightly on my arm, the silence between us louder than anything I could have said. Her fingers lingered on my sleeve longer than they should have, and I knew I should step back. Instead, I stayed, like I was waiting for something neither of us would name out loud. She withdrew her hand slowly, folding it into her lap. Her eyes dropped, then lifted again, softer this time. You should be careful with moments like this, she said. I tried to laugh it off, but it came out thin. Moments like what? The kind you'll remember too well. The words hit deeper than I expected. I opened my mouth, but nothing came. My chest was tight, a storm building inside me, and all I could do was watch her as if seeing her differently for the first time. Not just my professor, but a woman sitting in a quiet office, alone, with pieces of her life she didn't know where to place. I shifted, leaning against the edge of the desk, close enough to notice the faint scent of her perfume. She didn't move away. I didn't mean to stay this long, I said finally. Then why did you? She asked. Her question caught me. I ran my thumb along the corner of the essay, buying time. Because, it feels different here. With you. Her breath faltered, almost imperceptibly. The silence that followed felt like it might break me. And then, the knock. Sharp, quick. Her whole posture stiffened. Professor Hale? A student's voice drifted through the door. Do you still have office hours? She cleared her throat quickly. Not now, she called back. Her tone was clipped, efficient. The footsteps faded, but the interruption left a mark. I realized how close I'd been leaning, how easily someone could have walked in and misread everything. I straightened, forcing myself to take a step back. This is dangerous, I muttered before I could stop myself. Her eyes found mine again, steady, but not denying it. Yes. I turned toward the door, but my feet refused to move. Every part of me screamed that leaving would be the right thing, but my chest felt hollow at the thought. Do you regret telling me about your husband? I asked quietly. Her lips parted, then pressed together. She shook her head. No. I regret a lot of things. But not that. It felt like she'd just admitted something larger than she meant to. My heart raced. My mouth went dry. I should go, I whispered. But then her hand reached across the desk again, not quite touching me this time, stopping just short, like an invisible thread pulling tight between us. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed her. You don't have to. The clock ticked louder. My breath caught. And for the first time, I couldn't tell if I was about to step away, or across the line we both pretended wasn't there. I stood halfway to the door, her words still pressing against my back, "You don't have to." The rain outside had slowed, but in here the quiet felt unbearable. I turned slightly, just enough to see her, hands folded, eyes fixed on me like she was bracing for whatever I'd do next. "You make it sound easy," I said, my voice rougher than I meant. Her brows knit together. "What?" "Staying. Not leaving." I let out a shaky breath. "But it's not easy. Not for me." Her chair creaked as she leaned forward, studying me with that same look she gave when dissecting a sentence in class, except now, it was me she was dissecting. "Why not?" I almost laughed, though nothing about it felt funny. "Because I noticed things I shouldn't. Like the way you twist your pen when you're nervous. Or how you cover your mouth when you want to stop yourself from saying something." Her lips parted slightly. She didn't deny it. "And now," I continued, the throat tight, "I'm standing here, wanting to ask you things I'm not supposed to ask." She swallowed, gaze dropping to the desk before finding me again. "Like what?" The air was thick. My pulse thudded against my ribs. "Like, if I'm the only one who feels it." The silence that followed was unbearable. Her eyes searched mine, and for once, her guard slipped completely. She looked human. Vulnerable. Her voice came out lower than I'd ever heard it. "You shouldn't say things like that." "I know," I whispered. "But I had to." Her hand moved, slow, deliberate, resting against the desk's edge. Not quite reaching for me, but close enough to make my chest ache. "Do you realize what this could mean? For you. For me." "Yes," I said. Too quickly. Too certain. Her breath hitched, a tremor passing through her shoulders. She looked down, pressing her fingers into the wood as if grounding herself. "Then why aren't you walking away?" I stepped closer before I could think better of it. My voice was quiet but sure. "Because I don't want to." Her eyes lifted, sharp, searching, and in them, I saw everything she hadn't said, the loneliness, the hesitation, the fear, the pull she was fighting against. For a moment, we were both suspended there, caught in something bigger than rules or roles. The clock ticked. The air pressed in. Her lips parted, barely a whisper escaping. "If we cross this line, there's no going back." I didn't move. Neither did she. The office, the rain, the whole world seemed to vanish until it was only her eyes locking on mine. The silence swelled, heavy, fragile, ready to break. And then she asked, barely audible, the question that changed everything, "Do you want me to stop?" Her question, "Do you want me to stop?" still hung in the air when the sound broke between us. A buzz. Sharp, insistent. Her phone, face down on the desk. She flinched, pulling back like the desk itself had burned her. I stepped back too, as if distance could erase the gravity of what almost happened. The buzzing stopped. Silence again. Then, a second later, it lit up once more. This time she turned it over, hesitating before answering. Her voice lowered. "Hello?" I tried not to listen, but the office was too small, her words too clear. "Yes. I know. I'll handle it." A pause, her shoulders tightening. "No, you don't need to call me anymore." She ended the call quickly, setting the phone face down again, as though even seeing it might undo her. "Was that?" I started, but she cut me off. "My ex-husband," she said flatly. "He still thinks he has a right to check in. To monitor." Her hands trembled slightly as she stacked papers that didn't need stacking. "We haven't spoken in months, but every so often he finds an excuse." Tonight it was about a bill. Last week it was a book he forgot. Always something. Something inside me shifted. I'd seen her as untouchable, controlled, and now there was a fracture. A window into how much she carried. You don't deserve that, I said quietly. Her laugh was soft, humorless. Maybe I do. Maybe I stayed too long. Maybe I let him take too much. I shook my head, heart pounding. No. You stayed because you hoped it would get better. That's not weakness. Her eyes snapped to mine, sharp with something between disbelief and gratitude. You speak like you know. I hesitated. My chest ached with the truth I'd never said out loud. My mom. She stayed. Years. Thought my dad would change. He didn't. Her face softened instantly, the weight between us changing shape. I'm sorry. I shrugged, though my throat was tight. That's why I notice things. People. When they're tired. When they're hurting. Because I grew up in a house where no one admitted it. For the first time, she didn't look like my professor at all. She looked like someone holding on to something fragile, afraid it might shatter. You shouldn't have had to carry that, she whispered. Neither should you, I answered. The silence between us was no longer empty, it was full, overflowing with all the things we weren't supposed to share. And then, almost as if pulled toward me, she reached across the space again, her hand brushing my wrist. You're not supposed to be the one who sees me like this, she said, voice trembling. I looked down at her hand, then back at her eyes. Maybe I'm exactly the one. Her breath caught, and just like that, the balance between us shifted. Not professor and student. Not what we were supposed to be. Something else entirely. Her hand stayed on my wrist, light but unshakable. I could feel the warmth of it spreading through me, the weight of what it meant. Neither of us spoke at first. The silence was its own language. Finally, I broke it. We can't keep circling this. Her eyes flicked to mine, unsteady. And if we stop circling? What then? I swallowed, pulse racing. Then at least we stop lying to ourselves. Her breath hitched, and she pulled her hand back as if afraid of her own impulse. You don't understand what you're asking. If this happens, it doesn't stay simple. You'll carry it with you. I'll carry it. Maybe we'll regret it. Her words should have cooled me down. They didn't. Instead, something inside me ached more fiercely. I already carry it, I said. Every day. You think I don't? Her eyes widened at my bluntness, and for the first time she looked shaken, her composure cracking. Why me? She whispered, almost to herself. I'm older. Complicated. Why not someone easier? I took a step closer, careful, like approaching something fragile. Because easier isn't real. And you make me feel like I'm not invisible. Like I matter. Her lips parted, and I saw it, the moment her guard slipped completely. She looked at me as though no one had ever said that to her, not in a way that rang true. Her voice trembled. You matter more than you know. That was it. The final wall between us fell. I reached for her hand, not forcing, just offering. She let me take it, her fingers tightening around mine like she'd been waiting too long for someone to hold on to. We stood there, two people who should have been strangers separated by roles and rules, yet somehow weren't. I don't want to regret this, she murmured. Then don't, I said. Let's not make it something ugly. Let's just be honest. Here. With each other. Her shoulders sagged, the weight she'd been carrying visible in the way she exhaled. She looked at me like she'd been holding her breath for months and only now remembered how to breathe. You're too young to say things like that, she said, a faint, broken smile tugging at her lips. Or maybe I'm just old enough to mean them, I answered. The clock ticked, the rain tapped softly at the window, and in that small office, the world narrowed to the space between us. She didn't move first. Neither did I. But somehow, the decision was already made, not by a kiss, not by some reckless leap, but by the way her hand stayed in mine, steady, unwilling to let go. The silence stretched, heavy but full. And then, finally, she whispered what neither of us could take back, "Then stay." Her whisper, "Then stay," kept echoing in my head long after the words left her lips. It was the kind of moment I knew I'd replay again and again, wondering if it had been real. And yet, it was. I stayed. Not for hours, not in some reckless way, but long enough to know that whatever line we'd tiptoed along, it had already changed us. She didn't push me away. She didn't take it back. We sat across from each other, the silence no longer sharp but softer, as though something fragile had finally been spoken aloud. She told me pieces of her life she had never shared with her students, about the quiet evenings, the empty apartment, the way the silence felt heavier than arguments ever had. And I told her about mine, about the nights I stayed awake listening to doors slam, about the hollow feeling of being unseen. For the first time, neither of us felt invisible. When I finally left her office that night, the rain had stopped. The world looked washed clean, like something waiting to be rewritten. She didn't promise me anything, and I didn't ask her to. But the look she gave me as I closed the door behind me, steady, unguarded, was more than enough. The days that followed weren't simple. We still had to navigate glances in hallways, the weight of words left unsaid in class. But there was also something new, an honesty between us, a knowing. We both carried it quietly, like a secret we weren't ashamed of, even if the world wouldn't understand. Looking back, I realized the story wasn't about breaking rules. It was about breaking silence. Hers. Mine. The silence that had kept us trapped in regret, longing, and fear. By daring to speak, to admit what we saw in each other, we found something rare, the kind of connection that doesn't ask for perfection, only truth. And maybe that's what love really is. Not the polished, easy kind. But the flawed, hesitant kind. The kind that asks you to risk being seen. When I think of her now, it isn't the red ink on my paper or the sharp tone she used in class that I remember. It's the way her hand trembled slightly when she reached for mine. The way she said "then stay" like it cost her something, and like it gave her something back, too. That night didn't just change us. It taught me that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do isn't crossing a line, it's admitting you want to. And we did.